it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me. Today I wanted to create a shaped number card. Now I am pretty much going to do everything kind of from white cardstock here from scratch, and I'm going to start off by using the two colors Weathered Wood and Victorian Velvet. Now these are kind of two vintagey sort of looking colors to me anyhow, and kind of more muted tones I guess. So I'm putting a little bit down on a non-stick mat. This is the replacement mat for the glass media mat, and it is just the perfect size non-stick sheet. It has a silicone backing so it doesn't move. I don't own the glass media mat at all, I've said that before, but this is the perfect size for me and it's a nice price point, which is important. So I have put down some of the colour on that non-stick sheet, then sprayed a little bit of water, and then I dipped my watercolor cardstock into it. Now I did the first layer and you saw I kind of moved it around with my paintbrush a little bit until I kind of liked the look. Then I'm putting down the same colors again and I'm going to do another piece, because sometimes I just feel like when I work on a couple of pieces at once I can kind of have a little bit more control and a little bit more choice. And I don't know, it usually kind of helps me with my process mentally kind of work through what I want. So we all do what works for us, and for me sometimes making multiples works really well. And it is also good because I usually have a little crafter by my side who wants to do similar to mum, so it works out well for us. Now I have dried some of these sheets and I am re-dipping them back into the ink there. Make sure that you dry in between the layers of oxides, and that's how you'll get really nice layering and kind of lots of different effects, spotty, dotty, and all of those kind of little bits and pieces, which is what I was going for, kind of like a little textured look to my cardstock. Now because I'm adding so much water and ink, it's important that you use some sort of watercolor cardstock. I'm sure any would work, just whatever you have in your stash. But just in case you're wondering, this is the Holtz watercolor cardstock. This is my favorite. This is my go-to for sure. Now I have these number dies here and they kind of have two outlines to each of them. So I have a piece of plain white cardstock here. As I said, I'm colouring kind of everything from scratch, and I want one layer just to be that Victorian velvet colour. So I am going to ink up a piece of white cardstock, but if you have a piece of cardstock already that's already coloured that matches your project, then go for gold and that will work perfectly too. But because I wanted everything to match and I didn't want to bring in any new colours at this point, I'm pretty much just going to have the three colours being white, Victorian Velvet and the Weathered Wood colours. So that's plenty for this card today. And I didn't have the right kind of dies to make the entire card out of this, otherwise it would have been too small. So I did take the numbered dies that I have, and you'll see how I make it into a shaped card without having the dies to kind of make a really big card, as big as I wanted it to be. So here I have taped together the two outside layers of the number dies, and this will give me a really thin border. So I'm going to cut these out. I will link everything down below in the description box in case you would like to see them or you're interested in them. And I have run this through my die cutting machine. Again, I only want the little outlines for this one, but I have a little helper beside me who is going to make up hers using the other bits and pieces that this cuts out as well. So no wastage here. She is just playing along. We don't actually have two people turning 35, but I do have one that I'm going to give this card to. So you can see those nice skinny outlines there that popped out of the dies. And then I ran this through with some plain white cardstock as well, and that gave me the solid kind of inside parts here. So just the same as I ran through the initial ones to get that outline, I just ran them through again and got a white solid die that will go right in the middle. And then I have these pieces of paper that we made at the beginning of the video, and I have my 3 and the 5. This is the kind of smallest layer of the numbers, and I will die cut these out of the sheet that we had at the beginning. Now you could also do this with any shape at all. It doesn't have to be numbers. You could follow the same technique to create whatever shaped card you wanted to create if you just had the dies, or the dies weren't quite big enough to create the whole kind of card base. But I am doing it with the numbers today because that is the card that I needed. So I thought I would show you guys, but it's really easy to kind of change it up and change whatever the feature is going to be. So here you can see I have my card base. Now this is a standard 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base, and I make all of my card bases out of 110 pound Nina Solar White card base. Now I want to colour this up a little bit so that it is the colour of the weathered wood. As I said, I'm sticking with my 3 colours that I have, and I'm trying to make sure that there is a nice kind of outline of each colour with my numbers. So I already die cut out the thin outline from the Victorian velvet, and then I have the white outline from that goes inside of the numbers, and then outside of the numbers I want there to be this kind of grey weathered wood colour. Now I have made sure to be really careful not to get any of the ink anywhere else, and so far I'm doing a good job. I am going to glue down all of my elements, and I'm starting kind of centered from the left hand side here, which is where the hinge of my card is. And that outline is not glued down yet. I just wanted to make sure to get the 3 in place and then have enough room for the outline to go on. So I'm just adding a little bit of liquid glue. This is when it's really important to use a liquid glue that will dry matte and not shiny or not. So if it oozes out the side a little bit when you're gluing on such fine elements as that little skinny pink border, we don't want to be able to see any of the glue marks. So I use the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish, and that is a really strong hold glue, and I pop it into these little glue bottles. I have a video on my channel showing you how exactly I do that, and this means I don't have to worry about any little shiny marks when the glue dries, or if I just have to slip or slide some of the die cuts around a little bit, I don't have to worry. So that's really important as well. And it kind of takes away a lot of the stress when I do have to shift them around a little bit. Now, once I have put down all of my kind of die cuts and I know where everything is on my card base, this is where I'm going to turn it into a shaped card, because at the moment it's just a normal card. So I am going to take my fussy cutting scissors, these are the Cutter Bee scissors, and just eyeball roughly all around the card, trying to leave a really similar border. Make sure that you leave that very left hand side, because that is the hinge or the fold of the card, so we definitely don't want to cut that bit off. But it's easy enough for me to go around and eyeball everything. Now that it's all stuck down and it won't shift on me, I'm just going to do kind of nice smooth cuts and turn this into a shaped card. As I said, you can do it with any shape. It doesn't have to be numbers. Numbers is just what I needed today. The one thing that you do need to remember if you're doing a different shape is that you want the card to be able to stand in some way, or make sure that the recipient knows how they would, if they would like to display it, how they're able to do that. So when I am thinking about what I'm going to kind of shape cut, then I definitely make sure there's a way that I think it will stand up. And I always test it throughout the way. So here you can see I'm opening and closing it, making sure that it stands without being too wobbly or anything like that. And I'm really happy with how that looks. So now it gets on to decorating it. Now I have a couple of colors of Nuvo drops. Now this one here is blocked. So this is what I do when I have a blocked bottle of Nuvo drops. I wiggle off that top, I get a nice little pin, and I just poke it right through, and you can see there's a wee dot there at the end that was blocking it, and then take out the pin, and then I will just kind of wiggle the top back in, and you'll be away laughing. So this just happens to me a little bit when I use a color that I don't use very often with my kind of blacks, whites and silvers and morning dew colors. It doesn't block, those don't block on me at all, but sometimes with these kind of colors that I use much less often, they do block a little bit. So just pop a needle through it and you'll be good to go again. Now, just for a little bit of texture, I thought I would try something fun with my Nuvo drops, because I have a few of them and I'm always looking at ways to kind of stretch my supplies and make sure that I'm using everything that I have. So I am creating some texture by making dots. I'm starting off a little bit thicker down the bottom and then making them a little bit further apart up the top. Now, this is just a color that I thought matched the card, but you could also go for a contrasting color as well. And then once I'd finished these kind of pink ones, I did actually go ahead and add in just a few little white Nuvo drops as well, because I felt like I was incorporating that white and it broke up the pink ones just a tiny little bit. But this was fun. It was something a little bit different for me, and I'm going to keep adding some more things on so that this kind of falls into the background a little bit more. Even though the numbers are kind of the main focus of the card, the dots on the numbers aren't the main focus at the moment. So here I am just adding in a few of the little white drops, not as many as the pink, just here and there. And I tried to make the drops kind of larger, bigger ones down the bottom, and then heading up to be smaller at the top. So while I put that aside to dry with my Nuvo drops, I have a little bit of burlap ribbon here. Now, if you don't have separate twine, like I never have a stash of it in my house, here's what I do. I get a little bit of the burlap ribbon and I cut off one of the seams, one of the sides, and then you can just pull out all of the little individual strands, and this is the perfect little pieces of string that I will make a bow with, a kind of rustic looking bow. So that works really well. And I'm just going to tie them into a tiny wee bow and then cut off the ends, and that's that bit nice and easy and done. Now you can stop at any point with this card. You can add things on or not add things on. I knew I was going to be hand delivering this one, so I had the ability to kind of add some more bits and pieces on. All of my Nuvo drops are dry now. They don't take too long where I am at the moment, but I'm going to create some flowers just really quickly. I die cut a fair few of them out of that die that you can see on screen. And then I'm just going to take the weathered wood color, and I'm not even going to ink it up. I'm just going to add a little bit more ink to the outside petals of these flowers, and that just breaks up all of that white and kind of makes them not so flat. In a moment I will zoom in and you'll be able to see really close up just kind of how much ink I am adding, and it's just to the very outside edges of the petals, so just a little bit. And if you add a little bit too much, I just kind of swipe it with my finger and that quickly takes a little bit of it off, but it just makes such a difference rather than having completely flat little flowers. Then all I'm going to do once I have inked up all of the petals, I'm just going to put 3 of these together. You can make these as dimensional or just leave them as is, depending on how much space you have if you are going to mail it or if you're going to hand deliver it. You need to just be aware of how much dimension you're adding to your card. But I'm going to add 3 to each of mine, and I end up making 4 or 5 of these little flowers just because I wasn't sure how many would need to go on. But again, I'm just using the same matte medium glue and sticking them together. Then I will just pull up some of the little petals so that it makes them again nice and dimensional and not so flat. So that is my little flowers, and I will add the centers in a little bit. Now I'm going to pop them on my card and kind of put everything all together. I want them bunched just kind of nicely in the middle, so I'll add a little bit of the liquid glue to the back. And again, using liquid glue means that I have time to kind of wiggle them around and get them where I want them to go. And I know that that little bow that I made earlier on is also going to fit right on top of all of those little bunch of flowers. So I've got 4 of the flowers, and again I'm just going to add liquid glue to hold the bow on, and that will dry nice and strong. I'm not worried about that at all. So I'll pop that there. Then I'm going to add a little bit of the white Nuvo drops into the centers of the flowers, and that finishes them off perfectly. So that is my card for today. I really like this one. It fits into a standard 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch envelope. However, I added a little bit more dimension, so I will custom make an envelope that is slightly bigger so that I don't squish the flowers quite so much. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, and I would love to see you over on my Facebook group. There'll be a link down below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye!